Okay, good evening, everyone, and thank you for coming to the FY27 Community Conversation with our County Executive, Mark Elridge. This event is being recorded. My name is Peter Fosselman, and I'm the Director of Regional Services here in Bethesda. I want to thank our host tonight, which is our Citizens Advisory Board. I know a number of the members are here, but we're going to hear from our chair in a few minutes, Kristen Nelson, and then she will recognize the board members that are present this evening. Also want to give a special thanks to our teams that are helping out from the Public Information Office, the Technology and Enterprise Business Solutions, and the Management and Budget staff. This is why you're here tonight. This is why you can hear. This is why you can see things if you're at home. You can watch on YouTube, and they are putting a show on tonight, so thank you to those three teams. Also want to thank a couple of my regional services members, TJ Vance over there in the corner, and Brandon Stuckey is here somewhere. I know maybe he's in the other room. So thank you to both of them. I could not do my job was not without TJ and Brandon, so I appreciate that. So real quick, what do regional services do? Everyone asks me that question all the time. We're an arm of the government. We're an extension of the county government. When years ago, the county seat, which is still there in Rockville, the people that were down county, there were no cell phones, there was no internet, and you would have to run up to Rockville to get services. And so regional services got started to provide another arm of county government to help the residents. And so today we have 5 locations. Some of the things that we do, a few small things, like if there's a pothole on your street that hasn't been filled, we can work with transportation and make sure that gets filled. I just got a call over the weekend from a couple that lives in Chevy Chase. They had a tree fall in their backyard. The tree's on state property. I was able to get a hold of the State Highway Administration because it's next to 495. They were able to get out there and clean it up, so we can do things like that. Also, if you have someone in your family that is in need of mental health services, we can connect you with HHS and get that taken care of. So we pretty much do everything that the county government does, and we're here to help you. We cover the areas of Bethesda, Cabin John, Chevy Chase, Friendship Heights, Garrett Park, Glen Echo, North Bethesda, also known as the Pike District, Potomac, Rockville, and the Twin Brook communities. It's a pretty large area, and we stay close to all of the members in that community. Within those areas, we have 4 special districts. We have the Bethesda Urban District, which of course we're in right now. We have the Friendship Heights Urban District, which is just south of us. We have the Pike District, which is in North Bethesda, and then we have Rock East, which is in the city of Rockville. So I want to thank our partnerships at the Bethesda Urban Partnership, the Friendship Heights Alliance, the Pike District Partnership, and of course the city of Rockville for collaborating with us in all 4 of these special districts. I want to remind everyone that in the other room, the Wisconsin room over there, we have several members of our county staff and also some of our other partners that are in the room to share information with you if they have questions. They do have some things to hand out, and so I do encourage you, when you have a moment, to go over there and visit with them. There'll be time after this meeting to go over and talk to them, so please do that. And then I want to recognize a couple of the elected officials that are here, and if I miss someone, please raise your hand and let me know. Let's start with our school board members are here. Julie Yang, Carla Sylvester, Delegate Mark Horman, Delegate Teresa Worman, and then from our District 1 County Council member Andrew Friedson, Cindy Gibson's here tonight. Thank you. Did I miss anyone? Council member Sales, thank you very much. And what's your first name? Heather, thank you for coming from Larry Ann Sales office. Appreciate that. Okay, so tonight, yes, the agenda's in front of us. We're going to talk about several things, but I need to go over a few details. One is to let you know that your voice matters. And this isn't just a meeting to be a sounding, but this is a meeting to voice what you want to hear out of the county for the next budget that's coming up. We're holding 12 community conversations across the county. They're all this fall, and this is in order to build the FY27 operating budget. Tonight, this is the first of these 12 meetings. In addition to attending community forums like these, you can also help shape the budget by talking to your council members, any boards or commissions that you know members, or if you serve on them, as well as sending letters and emails to other elected officials and participating in other public meetings. Slide number 4. We have operating budget basics coming up here, and give you some background on that. Slide 5, please. We have 2 budgets in one county. We have the operating budget and we have the capital improvements budget. The county is the operating, the county includes things like, the operating budget includes things like teachers, bus drivers, police, firefighters, our first responders, and trash collection. The second budget is a capital budget, which supports the construction of building infrastructure, such as schools, road repaving, and new facilities like a library or a recreation center. And I do have white on tonight after Labor Day, and that's to support the recreation center effort. Slide 6, please. The operating budget process and timeline. The graphic shows a timeline of how our operating budget is put together. The process kicks off with what you're here tonight, these community conversations. We move them earlier in the process so that you all could have more time to let us know what you would like to hear, so that the executive has time to put the budget together, the staff at OMB can get it done, and we can deliver it in a timely manner over to our county council members. Later this fall, the departments will submit their budget requests to the county executive. In late fall and early winter, the budget requests are reviewed and discussed with the county executive. Superintendent Taylor's recommended budget is released in mid-December, with the Board of Education approving that by March 1st. This would be 2027. On March 15th, the county executive must transmit his recommended budget over to our county council members, and the county council will take it from there and hold public hearings and work sessions this spring. And then the council takes the final action on FY27 in May of 2026. Did I say 2027 a minute ago? I meant 2026. Sorry about that. So slides, the next couple of slides, if we could have 7, please. I did mention we have 5 regional services areas. They're here. We're standing down county, Bethesda, Chevy Chase. We have East County, we have Mid County, and we have Up County, and then of course Silver Spring. Next slide, please. I mentioned some of the special districts earlier, but we also have 13 municipalities. They're very important partners. They're also very important to me because I'm a former mayor. And we work well with all of these municipalities. We also have some notable headquarters, which are in this turf, such as Choice Hotels, Marriott, Geico, and you can see the rest. And then we're the home to 3 major federal departments: the National Institute of Health, NIH, the Consumer Product Safety Commission, and the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. Next slide, please. So just quickly, a couple of examples of what operating investments are. Our Bethesda Urban Partnership is part of the operating budget. The Neville Street Homeless Shelter up in North Bethesda is part of that. Also Montgomery College. We have several locations. That's part of operating budget. And then our first responders, our fire, our police, and all the members of first responders teams are part of the operating budget. Next slide, please. These are just some investments that have been made in the Down County area, in no particular order, but North Bethesda, the Life Sciences, or the Pike District has been the executive's been a big champion of this for the BioLife Sciences in North Bethesda and the Pike District, and that's finally coming to fruition with a partnership with WMATA, and that's moving forward. The Twin Brook Quarter, where the new Wegmans is on Rockville Pike, is a good example of investments. And then, of course, the Purple Line, which will end here in Bethesda, down in Bethesda Row. And then last but not least, the Women's Cooperative Farm Market, which is going to be going under a renovation. They're keeping, of course, the historic building, but they're building new development around it. So moving on, the county council listens to you. And last year, and the biggest concerns were immigration resources, public art, and space, the county's incinerator in Dickerson, and the policing drone program. The Gilchrist Center, which services our immigration community, I have some statistics from their director, and they served 3,462 people last year, which is a huge amount of members of newcomers to the county. The top languages were Spanish, English, and French. The top countries where these people were coming from were El Salvador, Peru was next, and then the United States was third. The number of referrals, meaning other services outside of the Gilchrist Center, were 6,165. And then the areas of need, meaning the folks that came in and needed help, the areas of need were adult education, legal services, and then job resources and employment. Moving on to public art and spaces. In Friendship Heights, we have 2 new murals that were created recently along Wisconsin Avenue by the bus turnaround. They're also installing a surface mural between Banana Republic and the Barlow building. And then across from the Brookdale neighborhood, which is still on the Montgomery County side, you see the new mural that's on the Lord and Taylor building, which is very, very colorful. So some examples of some of the art. Some other things are here in Bethesda. If you look out the window and you have a moment, there's a signal box out there for the traffic signals. We had 15 that were wrapped in vinyl. Those were all done by local artists, the artwork, and it was an amazing process, and the Bethesda partnership led that effort. So we have 15 of those, and we're going to hope to continue the effort along with our Arts and Entertainment District for Bethesda. The Dickerson incinerator. The county continues to evaluate a more sustainable solution and options for managing the county's waste that goes to the Dickerson incinerator. The contract's been extended for this resource recovery facility until April of 2031. However, it may be canceled, that contract, with 180 days notice. There is a quicker way out of that should we have a better solution. This extension, though, it continues critical maintenance of the facility and ensures that the facility operates in a safe manner and that it's reliable. But the good news about the incinerator, which I did not know this until today, was that while waste is burned there, 530 kilometers a ton solid waste of burn there, it actually produces energy. Last year, it produced 67 kilowatts of energy, which is an enormous amount of energy. So it's recycling, and we're getting a benefit of having the incinerator. Last but not least, our awesome drone program. I see some of the faces that were here when we had some of the hearings on the drone program that was at the Bethesda Chevy Chase High School last year. This is in full order, working, and it's improves the police response times. It allows the Montgomery County Police Department to be more efficient with their resources. It provides real-time information to ground officers to allow for better decision-making. It assists with de-escalation of incidents to enhance the safety for both officers and our community members. And then it assists with locating and apprehending criminal suspects. So I'll stop talking. I want to thank you all again for coming this evening. And I want to remind you to visit our friends over there in the Wisconsin room. And I want to take a moment and introduce the chair of our Citizens Advisory Board, Kristen Nelson.
Thanks, Pete. I appreciate it. I'm pleased to welcome all of you here on behalf of the Western Montgomery County Citizens Advisory Board. And I'd like to start by acknowledging our CAB members who are here. Could you raise your hands? We have quite a few. I see working from the back, Katya Marin, George Wolfond, who's our vice chair, Lee Kaiser, who's there, Janet Schatz, and Ahmad, Tazeen Ahmad, I'm sorry. I thank you guys for being here. And also I want to extend a warm welcome to County Executive Mark Elrich. We really appreciate the time that you take to hold these meetings in person. They give residents the chance to hear directly from you about the budget, and they give you the chance to hear directly from the community. And I can tell by the looks on your faces, you're ready to make some statements that he'll hear. And we really appreciate you doing them. Thank you. Tonight, you're going to hear about many different priorities in the community, but one I think you may hear about repeatedly is the call for a rec center in downtown Bethesda. I heard a clap. Thank you. Although Bethesda is the county's economic driver, we lack something that many other communities have, a rec center. Both the 2017 Downtown Bethesda Sector Plan and the 2025 Minor Master Plan Amendment identify this as a priority. And the community strongly supports it too. Regional Services has been conducting an online poll for the past month or so, and more than 1,500 people have weighed in, with 93% saying, yes, we need a rec center for Bethesda. And it makes sense. We need a place where teens and kids can gather safely. We need a place where seniors can socialize and stay healthy. We need a place that offers health and wellness opportunities for our increasingly diverse residents. We need a place that attracts business and serves as an amenity for workers that keeps them engaged in downtown Bethesda. We need a rec center. Are you sensing a theme? We need a rec center. I know that many of you have issues you want to raise tonight, and I don't want to keep the mic too long, but as Apple's Tim Cook would say, there's one more thing. We want that rec center to have a pool. So that's part of our ask. Thank you. And I'm going to leave you with that thought and turn things back to Pete. Thank you all for being here tonight. Thank you for attending and for coming to share your ideas, whatever issue brings you here tonight. We appreciate it. The CAB supports hearing your voice. We're glad that you're here. And thanks again to the County Executive.
Okay, so it's my privilege to introduce our County Executive, Mark Elridge.
So good evening, everybody, and good to see everybody here. I do these every year, and when I came into office, we were doing these, but the previous executive did the listening forums after the budget was done, and I thought that's not the right way to do this, and so we switched it the next year to doing these forums during the fall, so we can hear from people. And we've already done 6 capital forums in the community. One was here, and now we're doing 12 of these forums in the community, and we do them both geographically. We also do one in Asian languages. We have one in Spanish. We have special one with the African diaspora community and the African American community. So we both address people by some of the communities they live in and ethnic groupings, but also by geographical groupings. And it gives us a better chance to get a handle on what people are thinking. I want to say something about swimming pools and rec centers. David Dice, you could correct me if I'm wrong, but doing the pool in the rec center in Silver Spring created more problems and headaches than it should have. And if I were going to do a swimming pool and a rec center, they would not be in the same building. It puts enormous stress on the building. It is not designed to hold a swimming pool. And if I had to do over in Silver Spring, the pool would have been someplace else, not tied to that building's construction. It was not the best idea in the world. That said, we'll take a look at the recreation center request as a whole. And the big challenge up here is if you're really thinking about 70 or 80,000 square feet, that's 2 acres. And so look around you and tell me which 2 acres in Bethesda that you've got available so I can do this, because that's one of the big challenges here. And the 2 acres I can think of is the park that we're trying to get behind the women's farm market, and that would defeat the purpose of the park if we took up all that space with the pool. So we're going to have to think about where else we can do this. But it doesn't mean it can't be done. It just means it's going to take some time, and you still have to do a program of requirements, so it gives us time to think about it. I didn't want to start there, but I figured since you mentioned it, and I didn't want people waiting with bated breath for an answer or something like that, I would just kind of address it kind of up front. So yes, this is something we can do. Finding the place for it and finding space in the capital budget is the challenge we're going to have. So back to where I was supposed to be in this presentation. Let's see, what is my first slide? Other than that, I'm the county executive. Is my thing stuck? The clicker's not working, and my thing is possibly stuck. How do they do this? Oh, yay, something different. All right, so this should give you an idea of what some of my priorities are for this budget. One is affordable housing. We don't have enough of it. We're zoned in a way that makes it very difficult to produce affordable housing. Anytime you primarily zone for high rises, you've pretty much said we're not building affordable housing here, because the cost per square foot to build a building that requires steel and concrete is above $600 a square foot, and it makes it very challenging to get affordable units in it. And when you zone for only 1 and 2 bedroom units, it's hard to get units for families in these high rises. And so, my belief is we need to look at some of the places where we've zoned for too many high rises and reduce the heights, so you can actually have 5 to 10 story buildings that could be built more affordably and have a better percentage of affordable units. When the county does deals, and we do deals with developers, we get higher than what's required for affordable housing. The standard in Bethesda is 15% has to be affordable. There are problems with that number because the incomes for people are around $70,000, $75,000. You've got 50,000 households in the county with less than $50,000 incomes. they don't qualify for MPDUs, and you've got people who make more than $75,000 or $80,000 who make too much for an MPDU, but can never afford to rent an apartment in downtown Bethesda. So we've got to find the opportunities to build units a little above the MPDU range and below the MPDU range, and do that more regularly. We get that with the projects that we actually play a role in. And we just opened up the Allium off of Veers Mill Road and Randolph Road, and it's 195 units, and it's all affordable below 80% of AMI. But we could do that because we own the land, and we had the ability to say what kind of building we were going to build. We weren't dependent on a developer making a decision. And so the more we have control over property, the better outcomes I think we can have. We are also, committed to dealing with climate change issues in the county. So you see things in our budget that are really focused on climate change. We're lucky because of the former federal government, when they actually cared about the environment. We actually have a very expensive piece of machinery that converts natural gas to hydrogen. And we are intending with our bus fleet to bring in buses that run on hydrogen, because the battery range is not long enough for some of the routes we want to run. We don't want to have two buses to accommodate those routes over a day. So we want hydrogen buses that we can actually fuel and keep fueled and conserve the routes all day long. So we're lucky enough to have the converter. It's going to bring down our price of hydrogen. We're also building a facility with solar panels and water, where the electricity from the solar panel runs through the water and produces hydrogen out of the water. You can actually do this experiment in your home. You can put a battery, hook it up, run it through a glass of water, and you can create a nice explosive mixture of hydrogen gas and O2. And so I don't highly recommend that, but when you're a kid and you do things for novelty reasons, you can do that. But it's, we're committed to doing the things we think we need to do. We've adopted building energy standards, which are a big deal. New buildings in Montgomery County are going to be clean and green. The existing buildings are going to have to come up to higher standards over time. We're not forcing people to just replace all your furnaces right now, but as you go through the cycle and it's time to replace your furnace or your air conditioner, we have requirements that'll move you toward heat pumps, which is a much more efficient way of heating and cooling. And we believe this is a direction we can go. And unfortunately, we've got a couple of visionary builders in Montgomery County who've actually demonstrated, that it's feasible, but that it's economically feasible. And so there's a large 2 high-rise complex going up on New Hampshire Avenue by the Beltway. And that developer has all very modern technology. And the most interesting thing is the air conditioning units are on the balconies, heating and air conditioning units are on the balconies of the apartments. And so instead of a central system, which is very expensive to build and maintain, they're able to do it with independent units. So those are the kind of innovations that I think are pretty exciting. In terms of the incinerator, yes, we want to shut it down. Yes, it produces electricity. Yes, it produces a lot of bad gases. It is not a good thing to have in the county, and we should not be owning a large source of carbon emissions. So our goal is to shut it down. We've been working to find technologies where we can take our waste stream and monetize our waste stream. So last week I went on tours to 2 places in Pennsylvania that take construction waste and they turn it into products that they actually sell and make money on. We're going to look at another facility in Portsmouth this week that's involved in more complicated processing of materials. So we think there are ways that we can become greener, that we can become smarter with our waste. I don't want to burn it. I also don't want to send it to a landfill. So our goal is to get as much out of the waste stream, get money for it, which we don't get right now for much of it, and help underwrite the costs of operating that facility. So that's something we're pushing on pretty hard. Economic development has been something that I pushed on since I got elected, because I was well aware of the flatness of the job curve in Montgomery County. It has not grown since the recession to any great extent. It's been hurt by a couple of closure of large malls in Montgomery County. When a mall closes, you're looking at a couple thousand jobs going away. It has a real impact on the economy. So we've been looking at what we can grow. So if you look in North Bethesda now, you'll see the work that's being done in around what's going to be the new metro station. We signed an agreement with Hines. They're going to, not a new metro station, buy the metro station. Hines is going to be the master developer. They have expertise in life sciences. And a couple of years ago, we opened what's called the Institute for Health Computing. And this was an idea I actually had, and it took me 2 years to convince the University of Maryland. But during COVID, when I'd seen what kind of work the doctors and scientists were doing on computers instead of in wet labs, I had this feeling that the science had changed and that there's no longer a wet science. It's increasingly a science of understanding how atoms work and cells work and looking at things at the actual cellular level. And I went to the university and asked them, could you create an institute here that would be an AI institute that was dedicated to working with drug companies for drug development and patient care? And 2 years later, they said yes. And I did the same with WMATA. I said, I want to take this station and I want to try to replicate the life sciences density that you see in a place like Kendall Square in Boston, because if you know about Kendall Square and San Francisco and places like that, life science is no longer requiring large sprawling campuses, but they're going vertical. And so we changed our laws so that you can do labs above the third floor of a building, so that it lets you go up rather than having to sprawl out. And we believe that we're going to be able to do something significant. That institute has grown from 20 people to 120 people now. They have contracts with AstraZeneca and other companies doing this kind of work to make sure that they can help these companies develop the kind of products they want. And that's a big thing for Montgomery County, because it's something we can say we're first in. You know, we're the #3 life sciences center in the country. Being first in something that's key to research is something that's going to be significant for us. So I'm really happy about that. Montgomery County continues to push on things like health and life safety issues. One of the healthiest counties in the country. We operate 11 clinics. I don't know if people know this, but because we have this large immigrant population that is denied health care because of political decisions made at the federal level, we operate at clinics because it makes no sense to have sick people in your community or to send sick people to school. And so it's not something we asked to do. It's something I wish the federal government were doing, but somebody's got to do it. And if nobody else is going to do it, the nice thing about being an elected official in Montgomery County, you can have some sense that people understand why things are important. And even though you wish somebody else would do it, you understand at the end of the day, we're the backstop, and that we step up when we have to step up. And in healthcare is a place we've had to step up. And I think it's important for the safety of the community. And it also was really important during COVID. Our connections to the community were really critical, and the not just the clinics, but the community groups. When we were trying to get testing out and vaccines out later, without the community groups, we would not have gotten as far as we did. We were the strictest place in the country, pretty much, in terms of how we controlled behavior during COVID. We had the lowest death rates in the country. We had the lowest cases per 100,000. When Hogan lost his nerve and started opening up the vaccines to everybody, we stuck with the original plan, was vaccinate seniors first. If you looked at who died of COVID, overwhelmingly seniors. When he opened it up statewide and said, our vaccines are for everybody, seniors were outcompeted by other people. So we made a decision in the county, with our share of the vaccines, we would stick to the senior population until we had the population vaccinated. Then we would use our vaccine for the other groups in the order in which they were supposed to get vaccinated. That's the kind of stuff our health department does and thinks about it. And I have an amazing group of people who work over there. Early care and education are two really big concerns for a lot of people in the county. Getting child care in this county is an expensive venture, and it takes up a lot of people's money, and it's challenging for people to meet those demands. And we've tried expanding our healthcare programs. Early care programs. We continue to put more money into early care. We need more money than we have, and we're looking at the state. This has been something that the governor made a priority, was investments in early care. And we really think this is important. When you have to pay $20,000 a year per kid to provide care. It's not just affecting low-income people, many of whom don't even make $20,000 a year, but it's affecting middle-class people who don't have $20,000 to spare, let alone if you have two kids, $40,000 to spare. So this is a priority for us to try to expand that. Montgomery County Public Schools, I'm a former school teacher. I know that where the money goes in the school system, they don't, I would say over the years, not everything they did was bright. Not all their programs. I mean, they brought back phonics after telling us that when I was a teacher, they didn't have phonics. And I was like, well, research shows you shouldn't do phonics. And now research shows that you should be doing phonics. This is when in the education world, this is where you learn about research. I can do research that gets any conclusion I want if it means I sell a book and a program to you. But they're back doing a much better job with language and a much better job with math. I taught elementary school, 14 years of fourth grade and 3 years of fifth grade. So I know how important not just teachers are, but also the curriculum of the schools. And so I'm really happy what I saw this year. And I'm happy with the superintendent who's brought a much different approach and a lot of transparency to the school budget. He was willing to actually kill programs and to look critically at what they were funding and to make decisions that, yes, some of the stuff we're funding, we probably shouldn't be funding. So I was very happy to see those changes. But the schools are still incredibly expensive. We, went out this year to fund their budget. They needed 700 additional teachers. And what people didn't realize is that in the world of politics, sometimes people get trained not to ask for things they're never going to get. So the school system had a major problem with support staff for kids with disabilities. But they didn't want to come asking for that on top of everything else they asked for. And so it festered until the point they said we need 700 people. So we bid off the 700 people this time. It's affecting all classes in the school, because if you have kids who aren't in the proper setting and do not have self-control abilities, or say they lack self-control, and they're in a regular classroom, it can be disruptive to everybody else's education. And so it wasn't just about those kids for the sake of those kids, but it was those kids because they need to be in the right setting to get a right education, and other kids need to be able to function in the classroom and have functioning classrooms. So I made a commitment to fund that budget. I'm really happy we did that. This year, we're going to try to tackle delayed maintenance. That's another thing the schools didn't ask for more than a decade, was actually how much money does it take to fix our buildings. So now we're going to look at what we have to do for that. But we're trying to get ourselves set right, because hopefully once we're set right, we'll maintain a level of funding that you don't fall behind again. The county has a racial equity and social justice office. Everything we do, we kind of run through that analysis. My budget now comes with an analysis of who benefits. And they're not shy about pointing out that, say, certain parts of the county get a whole lot of investment and other parts of the county don't seem to get investment. We've been very clear about the fact that investment has to be spread across the county. And I use Ike as an example. When he came in his very first year, he said, we're changing what rec centers we're doing in Montgomery County. So we've got these beautiful new shiny rec centers, and the rec centers in the Black community are falling apart pieces of crap. And they were poorly maintained, falling apart, too small compared to everybody else's rec centers. And he said, we're prioritizing those centers and we're going to build those centers. I was on the council when they did that. I applauded them for doing that, for having the guts to get up there and say some other people are going to have to wait because we have a responsibility to deal with this. We continue to take that kind of approach to racial equity. You got to make sure everybody gets a piece of the pie. And it can't just be the noisy people, and it just can't be the people you worry about voting. Sometimes people who don't vote deserve a piece of the pie. Just because they're here, they're human beings. And if they've got needs, we have a responsibility to make sure we address it. And the last thing on this slide is, talking about transportation. That's been a big issue for me. I actually am the one who designed the BRT system, the routes in Montgomery County. We have not been able to build a single inch of a proper BRT in more than a dozen years because there's no money in our budget that allows us to build it. Our capital budget, which when I was on the council peaked at $340 million a year, is now down to $280 million a year. We can't even build the schools we need at 280. I've been pushing the council to raise the cap to go back to where we were before. We will propose raising the cap again because we need to be able to build these projects. If anybody in here wants to talk about Virginia, I love talking about Virginia because, you know, it's great to hear the complaints like, why aren't you like Virginia? But let's talk about why we're not like Virginia. In 2012, Virginia passed taxing legislation that shifted the burden for building transportation infrastructure from the state to the counties. And so the Northern Virginia counties have much higher taxes than Montgomery County on commercial property for the purpose of building transportation infrastructure. They got permission to create special taxing districts, something the council hasn't supported. The last 2 years, we had legislation in Annapolis that could have given the county the authority, didn't obligate anybody to do anything, but would have at least given us the authority to do that. And we couldn't get support from the council, and without support from the council, the legislature wasn't sufficiently interested, but it did get through the House. This is a big deal. People are going to tell you that, you know, we got to be competitive with Northern Virginia on taxes. So this is the competition with Northern Virginia. Fairfax County's taxes in Tyson's Corner, which is a special taxing district, are between $1.52 and $1.54. Montgomery County's taxes are $1.04. People are fleeing to Virginia to pay 50 cents more than they would pay in Montgomery County. They're not going there because the taxes are lower. They're going there because the infrastructure is better, because Virginia is dead serious about building infrastructure. They understand the role that infrastructure plays in economic growth, and we've not been able to get that message through here in Montgomery County. And it's a real problem. In 2012, when they were faced with what are we going to do, how are we going to make Tyson's happen? Because they had these grand plans for Tyson's, and the developers, well, you're going to build transportation in Virginia. The county's reaction was, we don't have the money. The developers went down to Annapolis with a Republican legislature and a Republican governor and got permission to have special taxing districts. Tyson's changed. And the governor at the time, whom I'm no fan of, wrote an op-ed that's predicted exactly what would happen to Tyson's Corner with those taxing districts. We could do the same thing here. But if we're not going to build transit and we're going to leave people stuck in traffic, and yes, we've got the red line, but the red line is not really good for inner county connections. It's great for ferrying people into DC. I'm old enough to remember when it was originally proposed, some of us sarcastically referred to it as the white flight line. It was designed to bring back federal workers who once DC integrated, and my family lived in DC from 54 to 60. When DC integrated the schools, white workers left the city of Washington. And they were greeted in Silver Spring back then by real estate agents who advertised, we're still segregated. You're safe here. So that's kind of the history of why we wound up with what we wound up with. We need to build a proper transportation system. We need to be able to move people. I won't say quickly, but better than we move them now. And we got to get people from where they live to where they work. And that's one of my priorities. And I'm going to continue to push on that because, you know, if you want to talk Virginia, talk about what they did to get where they are, not where, don't tell me where they are. My eyes are wide open. I know where they are. Talk about how they got there. And we're failing that test. So I'll talk a little bit about how MCPS budget's happening, because some people, you know, write me letters and saying, do this and do that with the MCPS budget. The answer is no can do. So the way the budgets work, the school board makes its own budget. They work with staff, they come up with a budget with the superintendent, and the superintendent brings that budget to the board, and the board eventually brings it to the council. We have a misalignment of timing, which we're trying to fix. My budget's due to my council March 15th. I don't get the budget from the school system until March 1st. There's no way to make adjustments to our budget in a 2-week time period. And sometimes, particularly when the board adds money to the superintendent's request, we don't know what target we're trying to hit, and we're all sharing the same pot of money, this very large pot of over $7 billion. About 54% of it goes to the school system, including Montgomery College, and everything else goes to the rest of the county. But this is a big deal, and this is something we need to deal with to try to move the timing so we're better aligned. But the school budget, when it comes over, I cannot make any line item changes, and neither can the council. All we can do is say, we're going to give you this much money. We're going to cut you by this much money. We can't say we want you to put a program in your budget. We can't say we want you to take a program out of your budget. And in all honesty, that's probably right, because there's nobody on the council, no office on the council or in the administration that supervises schools, that knows what the issues are in the schools, understands the academics. That's why you've got a school board, and that's why you've got the staff that the school system has. So you have to trust them. And despite some dissatisfaction with some of the things they've done over time, by and large, they did manage to produce one of the best school systems in the country. It's not the best anymore. It's declined somewhat, but it's still pretty damn good compared to everybody else. And our job is to bring it back to be the best. And they need the resources to be able to do that. One of the things they're changing is they used to use magical numbers for class size. So when they would, including the last round of funding, when we didn't give them everything they wanted, they told the council, the class size is only going to go up one person. That was a lie, because the way they calculate class size, and they stopped doing it this year. We're going to get real numbers this year, but the way they did it, they divided up all the faculty, teachers in a building, and divided that into the number of students. Not all of those teachers have classrooms. So you're adding teachers who do not actually teach classrooms and pretending like the number of kids in the class is the average of this division problem. And we know that's not true. And so we raised it. I raised it again with the superintendent and with the union. And the union wants real numbers. I want real numbers, because you don't know what you need to do. And you will be surprised to see class sizes are not as good as they should be, because we've been playing with magical numbers. So one thing I don't like is magical numbers, and I try to get people not to use magical numbers. And I think we're going to be at least now, we're going to be in a much better shape with the school system. I think you got a superintendent who understands we're adults here. We can deal with the real world. Tell us what you need. Tell us what we need to do, and we'll figure out how far we can fund it. But it's important to us. We have worked with the Board of Education to get more money out of the state. That well is pretty dry right now, and they're not able to fund the blueprint for as much publicity as there was around the blueprint. The blueprint's been shaved back a little bit. That's going to be challenging to work with. And Montgomery College is also part of what we fund, and they follow a similar process. They develop their budgets, and we decide how many dollars we can give them. And if we don't give them everything, we leave it to them to decide what cuts they think are the least harmful cuts they can make in the system. So if you have any requests for what you want me to do to the school budget, you can write them to me, but and I will look at them, but I can't do anything about them. The real people you have to write to is the school board and the superintendent's office. Those are the people who can say, we need more of this or we need less of that. So just so you get an idea of like the numbers we deal with, this is our FY26 budget. And these are the commitments we can make. And as you can see, this budget is pretty locked in. The school system is the dark blue, and the light blue is Montgomery College. That's 54% of our budget's going to education. Go over to public safety. That's 18%. Almost 20% of our budget goes to police and fire. Jump up to debt service. That's what we pay for the bonds we float. What did the bonds do? The bonds bought all the schools and all the bridges and all the roads and anything major we do in Montgomery. Any capital project, this library, at the rec center you want, will probably be a $40 or $50 million bond item that we're going to have to float bonds to pay for. So you and everybody else who gets capital projects, get your capital projects from there. OPEB and pensions are $206 million. This is one problem we're trying to fix. Our pension funds are funded to the 90-something% level. We've been over 100% before. We're in the mid-90s right now. We're well funded on that. OPEB is one of the funds the county has that was created and not created in a smart way. They treat it like a pension. What OPEB is, it's employee benefits, health benefits. And what you're paying right now out of the regular budget is employee health benefits for this year. Retiree health benefits, you're paying money so that residents 20 or 15 or 20 years from now won't have to pay anything for employee health benefits because the interest off the money that you're putting away and not spending on things you need will be so large because the billions of dollars we put in this stupid fund just to sit there will pay the benefit then. And then 1 year, the council will no longer have to pay the benefit and somebody will wind up with a couple $100 million suddenly dropped in their lap. This is not smart planning. And it shouldn't be the current residents are paying for future retirees' health benefits. We have normal inflation that goes from year to year. If we keep doing what we're doing now, we could modify the amount of money we put in OPEB. I'm going to propose that we keep OPEB right now. It's 50% funded from what the theoretical number was. Leave it at 50% and then take the annual interest and put it into the operating budget to pay this year's health costs, which would then free up millions of dollars to go fund other things that you all want without raising taxes. The council did this last year for the school budget after telling me the year before when I wanted to do it that this was a crazy idea, but they didn't want to raise taxes last year, so they did the crazy thing and went into this. Now that we've both decided that we can go into this fund, we should go into it deliberately in a purposeful way and do a little better job of planning. You know, one of the things is trying to figure out what can you wring out of your budget in order to make it so that you don't have to raise taxes every time you have a problem. The fungible part of my budget is this rest of the budget. That's the $587 million. And that pays for all the school health nurses. It pays for recreation, everything you want in recreation. It pays for the parks. It pays for the libraries. It pays for circuit court. It pays for all the bus drivers in the county. All the departments, environmental department, racial justice department, libraries, all those are the rest of the budget. That is not the largest part of my budget. That is, you know, you look at it's dwarfed by public safety. It's a little bit bigger than debt service. It's not the biggest thing we have. And that's where my flexibility is. And so this is, I think I said this before, when you get tight and you run out of money, the social services and libraries are usually the first targets. When we hit the recession, the libraries and recreation programs had big hits in them in order to pay for them, because you know you're not going to want me to eliminate police, you don't want me to eliminate fire. You want the basic services, you want to feel safe. And so these other things are the casualties of all that. So that's why I don't have a lot of flexibility to do everything I'd like to do. Lastly, the operating budget challenges, you know, are numerous. There are more people who need help. I was talking to somebody who's doing food programs in the county, and they said there are more people online than there were during COVID. Hunger has not gone away. COVID showed us, you know, hunger didn't get invented with COVID, but when there were no stores to go to and people didn't feel like moving around, we realized how much people were actually not getting food. And so our food programs are a lot bigger today than they were, even though we're not in COVID anymore. Schools cost more. I think we saw that slide with the comparative. So I'll show that in a bit. Anyway, the schools cost more. Obviously, salaries goes up, staffing go up, the cost of the buildings go up. We have less budget flexibility, inflation, and we have constrained resources. We're not going to get, certainly not going to get what we used to get from the federal government. Fortunately, we're not overly dependent on the federal government, but we're not going to get what we used to get. The state's having a hard time, so we're not going to see the transportation money and some of the other funds we got from the state. So we're dealing with other people's constrained resources. And we had proposed tax increases in the past that would have given us more leverage and a little bit more flexibility that didn't get approved. So we're working with less tax revenue than we could have. You have an uncertain job market. There's a potential for losing somewhere between 10 and 40,000 jobs to the lunatic in Washington. When he was forced not to fire people in the spring, because the court said if it was in the budget and the funding was there, you had to keep these people on. The budget that comes over in October, assuming they can actually get a budget to come over in October, we don't go into continuing resolutions, the positions that they wanted to eliminate in the spring aren't in this budget, which means those people will not have jobs on the day that this budget passes. That could lead to a very rapid firing of a large number of federal workers. And we're seriously talking easily a range of 10 to 40,000 workers. And we're talking about the ancillary effects, like when USAID shut down, hundreds of jobs in organizations that worked with USAID lost their funding along with everybody else. Those are the things that we're worried about. Obviously, if there were 40,000 people lost jobs, the average federal worker is making over $150,000. Do the math, that's a lot of income that we get taxed from. Losing that income is going to have a negative impact on the county's tax revenues. We've been pretty prudent. The good news is that the county had a reserve target going back to Ike's of trying to get reserves to 10%. We not only hit 10% for the first time. We've been as high as 17.3%. We were well over 10% this year. We left in the budget 11.1%, I think. So we're performing above that. And we just got told that our year end is going to end. Is that public? Our year end is going to end a lot better than we thought. And we did get $42 million from the feds for FEMA reimbursement because everything we did during COVID that was reimbursable, we documented. A whole bunch of jurisdictions didn't do that. So we went in with full documentation, and we've been very fortunate to get most of what we asked for back from the federal government. Even now, we got $42 million back from them. It was nice to see they actually honored what they owed us. Anyway, we're facing, big potential swings in federal funding and big revenue swings from high-income earners because of the tax changes that occurred are going to trickle down to Montgomery County. My philosophy is pretty straightforward. The president said he's shifting things from the federal government to local jurisdictions. So it makes sense that I should follow the people who got these massive tax cuts in our local jurisdiction and no longer paying taxes that paid for our programs at the federal level, and then adjust our tax rates so we can recapture the money at the local level so they continue to pay for the things they were paying for before. There was a bill last year that raised the income tax from 3.2 up to a maximum of 3.3. We're hoping there's going to be another bill this session that would raise the cap to 3.7. Anybody under $300,000, I forget there's 3 or 4, can't get a tax increase. So the increase can only be on high income earners. And I will, if that comes to pass, I'll propose legislation that creates a graduated scale as incomes go up so we can capture money we otherwise would have captured from those folks. And it's the right thing to do. Most Americans believe you should have a fair tax system, and the people who make the most ought to be paying more, and they shouldn't be getting a free ride. And so I'm excited. Plus, they have deductions that none of the rest of us have. Not only do they not pay a higher rate, but they get away with more deductions than normal human beings get. And so they wind up effectively paying a lower rate. And you can see that if you look at the tax charts from the state and look at effective rates. It's like instead of going up, it's going the opposite direction. So there are things we can do, but we've got to figure out how we're going to do it. Lastly, is this lastly? I said we're worried about resident job losses. We talked about that. You can go to the next one. This is one of the issues I was talking about in terms of infrastructure. This shows in 2009, we were spending $300 million on infrastructure. That's what we were bonding for. The low line is where we are now. You can see that's what we've been doing. We're lower than we were. The blue line is what would have happened if you had adjusted spending for inflation. Inflation's a real thing. Everything we do gets inflated every year. So we have a over $200 million gap between where we were in real dollars in 2009 and where we are in real dollars today. This is not a good place to be. The school budget that I budget for in year one of a 6-year budget is not going to cost that much when you get around to building it 6 years later. We have no inflation adjustment in our budget to account for increased costs. So one of the things we're going to be asking the council to do is not only raise the cap, but include an inflation adjuster if we can do that, so that you can reasonably expect that the amount of money that you put aside is going to meet the needs that you thought you were going to fund, because this is a problem. And when I found out that, I think it was Alexandria funded this metro station, the city has an $800 million budget. They floated a $250 million bond. And if I wanted to float a $250 million bond in my $7 billion budget, I would be told I could not do that. And so we have locked ourselves into policies that are not very smart. We need to free ourselves so we can be a little bit more productive. And this is just an example of rising costs. In FY16, the ride-on bus is $467. Now it's $1.2 million. A new school, $361 a square foot to $834 a square foot. And fire engine is $685. Now it's $1.2 million. And the only thing that hasn't gone up with inflation quite is road paving. Was $390, now it's $519,000, but it's still a lot more money than we were paying before. And just so people get an idea, when we talk about inflation, these are real examples of inflation. It's not a theoretical thing that some economist is talking about. This is what we have to spend to buy these things. Our taxes need restructuring. The system is designed in the 50s and 60s. Most of the revenue came from new homes. And it helped us build great schools and roads, but today the county is fully developed and we need more modern investments. We need a different strategy. I'll give you an example. I talked about Fairfax County. Here's my other favorite example. Montgomery County is only the second lowest property tax jurisdiction in the region. The lowest tax jurisdiction is Washington, D.C. Why is Washington, D.C. lowest? They're 85 cents per 100, whatever your tax assessment is. They're 85 cents because their tax on commercial property of $10 million or more is $1.89. Their tax on commercial property that's worth $5 to $10 million is $1.77. Their tax on commercial property that's worth $2 million to $5 million is $1.66, and we're $1.04. We are suckers. We're being beaten in this game by people who are willing to tax commercial property at a more realistic level. And you don't see them slowing down building in DC. You can find cranes and stuff going everywhere. You don't see it in Fairfax County where it's $1.54. We are focused on the wrong thing. Business community wants to see services and investment in infrastructure. I can show you the low tax rate, but if I can't show you the investments in infrastructure, you lose. And these are just another example of what we deal with. These are the comparative rates all across. And you can see Montgomery County is on the far left, then Frederick County. I love it when someone says, if you raise taxes 2 cents, I'm going to Frederick County where the taxes are $1.11. The other favorite people are the ones that say, I'm going to go to Howard County where the taxes are $1.33. We're not the high tax jurisdiction that people claim. Fairfax County base tax for residents is $1.15. Commercial property is $1.28. Prince George's County is $1.37. And rest in Virginia is $1.36 for residential and $1.48 for commercial property. Then you can see Washington, D.C., 85 cents for residential going up to $1.89 for commercial. So that's where we sit. So if anybody tells you, this is a high tax jurisdiction, you're paying more than other people, it's factually not true. And you need to understand that because you look what other people do. This is how they do it. And we need to figure out. I would not propose going to Virginia's tax rates. We don't need to do it. We're not building the stuff they built, but we need to be higher than we are right now. And now you guys can ask me questions. Thank you very much.
So for anyone who has a question, I'm going to ask line up over here so that we do it in a first come, first serve order so that it's fair to everyone. So you're first.
Okay.
I'll hold the mic. That's my job.
Okay. Hi.
Okay.
First of all,
Shh.
okay.
Come on, guys, let her talk. You were very good for me.
First of all, I would like to endorse having a swimming pool because it's very, very useful for all sorts of reasons. Maybe it can be where the outdoor pool is. Maybe you can use some space there or something. But the second thing is for the bus route, which I guess is in the far future. I just want to make sure that you do it in a very meaningful way. I've observed bus routes in other jurisdictions where the project took so long that it really harmed businesses along the route. So when you have that money to do it, please make sure that the local community is not impacted by years of construction and disruption and all that. So
We hear that. We're
Okay.
looking for as many opportunities, frankly, where there are places we can use median strips, we'd run them down the median. If there's a place places you can do that, so you don't have to bust out the sides. The other thing would be to widen it at the sides, add a lane on there so that could be moved over, and then cars can take that lane and that would free up the middle for us. So there are a couple different ways to do it. We're also trying to do it in the most cost-effective way.
Over half of renter households in our county are rent burdened, cost burdened, straining budgets even for those with modest incomes. 13% of renter households earn less than 30% of area median income, which means they are considered extremely low income. The county faces a significant shortfall of deeply affordable units, as you said. Homelessness is rising sharply from 1,144 people in 2024 to over 1,500 in 2025, with family homelessness growing rapidly. Without an immediate increase in deeply affordable housing, especially for those who earn less than 30% of AMI, these challenges are likely to worsen. What progress have you made dealing with Boxable or other similar companies that could produce affordable housing units that could be put up quickly?
So I've gotten Boxable in front of the state. And when I went out to the shopping center trade show, I actually had an appointment with the company. And so we brought out the Assistant Secretary of Commerce and my permitting person and a very large Montgomery County developer. And we went out to the factory and had conversations with them. We're interested not just in buying the units because you got to pay shipping from Las Vegas. We're actually talking to them about building a factory. And whether it's in Montgomery County or in the state of Maryland, we want a factory over here. And so we're trying to figure out what the terms of that would have to be to make that possible. The reason why it's interesting to me is the price per square foot is a price that no one else can build at. And you get a pre-manufactured house. They literally get delivered to a pad site and they unfold like in a couple of hours. All the appliances are already pre-installed and it's ready to go. And so they're occupiable usually the next day. So I've had this conversation with a couple of bigger projects in Montgomery County where there's an interest. I met with Brandon Scott, the mayor of Baltimore. They've got 12,000 empty lots. They've got blocks that aren't empty, but they've got lots where you can knock down the things that are abandoned and wrecked and put these things in. It is an amazingly simple process, and the prices are good. We're also looking at other people who, particularly for taller buildings, are doing either modular or light steel construction, things that are less expensive than what people typically do. The price per square foot is the thing that determines whether or not people can live there. And we're very determined to try to knock those prices down. And the market's not going to do it. Nobody's going to reduce their profit margins. We're literally in discussions. I mean, we're talking about what's it take. I want a model unit. So we've asked, can we get a model unit set out here? So we're trying to get this stuff moving in real time.
Thank you.
Mr. Executive, I'm going to politely interrupt a second. It's been brought to my attention that a couple of people in the audience would have trouble standing in the line due to mobility issues. So
Fine.
if you're one of those people, if it's okay with you, I'm just going to ask you to raise your hands. We'll go ahead and let you ask your questions, and then we'll go back to the line if that's fair. So just raise your hand. Okay, there we go.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Mark, I'm Lee McNair with the Montgomery County Climate Coalition. And I know you talked about the incinerator earlier tonight. And I know that you want to close it as soon as possible, and you've done good work in that area. But we support the Department of Environmental Protection's decision to issue requests for proposals to use long-haul transportation of our trash to a well-managed landfill. And I know you don't like landfills, but we're going to landfill in Virginia right now. And so we can actually do better on the landfill. Based on the DEP's analysis, the cost to incinerate our trash is going to continue to go up. So we need to transition rapidly to a system that is designed to lower costs and be healthier for the county. So considering that, what funding in the FY27 budget are you planning to propose to promote transition to long-haul transport of our trash?
We will send something over to the council to do that. We're trying to knock down right now the things that we can knock down right now in the interim. So, for example, we do a horrible job with construction waste. We've met with a company, more than one company, that actually is interested in taking over. And one of the things that interested me, we've talked with companies that aren't asking us for money to build something, but are willing to come in as private companies and operate this. And in a sense, we would provide the feedstock. We might provide the place to build the facility, and they would make the profits on it. And so it's beneficial to us. And, you know, my goal is, as much as possible, is to find partners with capital who actually are willing to build and operate it like a business. And the big benefit of that is if they operate it like a business, you know it's going to work. You're not going to buy something that, you know, you try to turn it on and you try to make it operate and it doesn't work the way it's supposed to. People who are invested in being profitable are going to give you something that actually is going to work. So we're going to try to do some of these things as quickly as possible so that when we haul the waste away, we can reduce the tonnage. You're all going to need to get used to food recycling. We're going to need everybody to do it. And I tell you my own personal experience. If I'm in Tacoma Park and we do plastic bottles, you know, cans, cardboard, paper, and food. And of course, yard waste. When I look at my trash can every week, about the only thing in my trash can is either some plastic or paper that's too contaminated or plastic films. My containers are always light because there's nothing bulky. When you take food and cans out, there's nothing bulky. If residents could understand that by doing these things and participating in those programs, you actually lower our cost of dealing with your waste. If we, for example, if our food goes to a digester and a digester is producing methane, and methane is something we can sell commercially, or methane is something that we can give to the farmers for their dryers rather than buying suburban propane, there are things we could do that would benefit everybody in the county. So that people need to understand this is one of those things where your participation and involvement is actually a civic good. It's not only something we're asking you to do because we want you to be environmentally conscious, but you could help us bring down the cost of what the things we're going to do are going to cost. The more you participate, the better off we're all going to be.
Thank you, Mark.
And Pete, I think Lorna has a question online.
Good evening, everyone. This is a virtual meeting. Mr. County Executive, these are tax related. Property taxes of small old homes have skyrocketed in the Bethesda Chevy Chase area due to developers bidding up the cost of old houses. Many longtime residents have been focused forced to sell and move because they could no longer afford their property tax in retirement. Unlike every other jurisdiction in the region, Montgomery County has no serious senior property tax credit program. The $700,000 assessment cap of the is insufficient current program effectively rules out any long-time homeowners in the Bethesda Chevy Chase area from qualifying. Why haven't you done anything to implement a serious senior property tax credit program?
I'm willing to look at that and whether we need to raise the cap, but I'm not sure whether that's the right place to start, whether the 700,000 is the right place. And I'm not sure whether raising the cap is the right place as much as putting money into, in some places have done this where you create an escrow fund. And so you, instead of actually you wouldn't do an escrow, instead of paying the tax, you would owe the delta. So say I capped it at 600 and your property was worth more than that. You would take the delta between say 600 and 700 in your taxes, and that delta would go as a debit against your house. When you sell your house or your estate sells the house, then they collect the tax. So you would have benefited from the increase in price of your house. The county would defer some of this as a tax, but it would be, I think, to me, that's the fairest way to do this. And I do think we have a right to and should collect the taxes. But if seniors have a hardship and they were to opt for a program like that. So I'm going to see whether our legal staff thinks they can write something that does that. They've done it in other jurisdictions. I'd be open to doing it here.
Hi, Mark. It's Teresa Cameron with the
Never
Pike
seen you
District
before.
Partnership. I first want to thank Pete and his team for all the work that they do all the time with business districts and emerging business districts, which we are one, and also urban districts. So thank you very much. And I want to applaud you for all the work you've done to help North Bethesda move forward, in particular the IHC, who we've met with several times and are working with on some of our partnerships related to economic development and our work with Carter Rock to bring more business here in North Bethesda. So I just urge you to keep funding the urban districts, emerging business districts, because we really are helping increase the value of Montgomery County and economic development.
That's why you're still in the budget.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kevin Walton for the Climate Coalition. I want to thank you for listing climate change as one of your top priorities, and thank you for your support for the Green Bank over the years. As you know, the Green Bank supports making buildings energy efficient and transitioning from gas. So the county passed a law requiring 10% of the fuel energy tax to go to the Green Bank. This is really important now, especially since the funds they were supposed to get from the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund are going to be clawed back by the federal government. Also, fully funding the fuel energy tax allocation is important for financial markets to understand that the Green Bank can be relied on. So last year, you didn't support full funding of the 10% to the Green Bank, and we're wondering this year if you can commit to making sure they get the full 10%.
So I'll be honest, I'm pre-commitment on things because I don't know how my budget's going to shake out. I don't know what the federal impacts are going to be. Last year, we weren't prepared for the school budget, and there's a limited willingness on the council to go anywhere with taxes. And so obviously, if I don't have other revenues, things have to give. I had to give some things on affordable housing I didn't want to give. So it's not always fun and easy. And I don't always get to do all the things I want to do. But if we're funded for it, we'll certainly put it in there. I don't want to undercut what they do because they do amazingly good work. And that project I talked about on New Hampshire Avenue is one of the projects that they were really bigly involved in.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Rashida Lee. I am part of HJM with Housing Justice of Montgomery. I am a resident in this county over 20 years. I was wondering about affordable housing. I was really surprised to see it at the top of the list. I'm happy about that because I had lost my job over 2 years ago, and I am also a resident in one of the shelters, which all the shelters are very full right now. And there are tons of homeless people everywhere, like I've never seen before. It's overwhelming. And there have been no funding for housing for people that are in shelters. So I'm just wondering, Mr. Elridge, since that was the top of your list, how are you going to make affordable housing for people that have been in this county over 20 years, may have lost their job, they may have fell in hard times. A lot of different things have happened over the years, even after COVID. It's taken a lot of people time to get their life back on track after COVID. It's been a lot for the residents here that supported the community. So I'm wondering, when will you be able to offer affordable housing for people that are in need?
There's a huge need, and the county's got limited resources. It is not something we can do cheaply. And so we've not been able to do everything we wanted. In the middle of COVID, we built a 200-bed shelter because we had put people into 2 rec centers in Montgomery County. And I asked my staff what happens when the rec centers open up again, and they said those people go back on the street. I was able to get David Dice. I don't know if David's still here, but David found, you're David. David found the property in Rockville, and we built a shelter in 9 months for 200 beds in it. I have asked all the council members to give me candidates in their districts for 50-person shelters, so I can spread them around the county. You can't have the only shelters in Rockville and Silver Spring. So other parts of the county have to step up. I will say in Gaithersburg, Germantown, they've asked us to find a shelter location. So we're going to work with them to find another shelter location up there. We are reopening the facility after we renovated the one on Goody Drive. We're looking at the ability of expanding what we build over there. If there was a hotel or motel to come available, then we would try to gobble that up. So we continue to look to where to make investments. And just like we're looking for using modulars for single family or townhouses and things, we're looking at small modulars around anywhere from 200 to 400 square feet where we could create single units at a price that's, the ones that were about 400 square feet are the price of 2 years of putting somebody in a hotel. And there would be permanent housing. So it would save us money if we did that. So we're looking for ways to do it, and we're looking for places to do it. But we need cooperation from communities to say they're going to take these things. And we're going to need support from the council. The council's been pretty good on funding housing stuff in the county, much better than it used to be. So we're doing more, but obviously we're not doing enough. And I'm not going to pretend we are.
My name is John Dix. I'd like to make a recommendation regarding swimming pools. I think that the Crystal Pool at Glen Echo, if it were reopened, might be a way to solve your problem about finding more pool space. But to do it correctly, we'd also need to install or reinstitute the rail line from Georgetown to Glen Echo, which hasn't operated from, I don't know, since around 62.
Yes.
It will also serve both the racial justice and social justice issues.
Look, I mean, I don't know about the pool, but it doesn't serve the local concerns. I'm not sure if people here want to drive to Glen Echo for a pool any more than if I told people in Silver Spring, you have to drive to Rockville for a pool.
Well, there's bus service to Glen Echo, which is all that was available after about 62. So I think access to Glen Echo is probably not, it's not as convenient as Bethesda, but it's still a solution.
It might be something you could do. I'm not, I'd have to ask the people actually involved in that facility, which is a federal facility, not our facility.
I think both the state and the county contribute.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is John Kelly. Several other questions I wanted to ask, but when I came in, I picked up one of these flyers that caught my attention, and it mentioned that your office gives money to something called the Maryland Israel Development Center, in the center. It brings weapons manufacturers and social media surveillance companies into the county. First of all, if this is true, how would you justify cooperating with this center given the genocide that Israel is committing?
I've tried to avoid, because I'd have to talk about every country that has crimes against its people, and I have to talk about every defense manufacturer in Montgomery County. We do not have any policy about saying you can't be a defense manufacturer. And I don't think it's appropriate for the county for us to try to make a decision. When we raised the issue of the MIDC, there was no support for popping it out of the budget. It's $41,000. It's not money that goes to the companies. They recruit is what they do. And we get companies that do stuff I don't like, but those companies doing military work, we already have companies in Montgomery County who do military work. We already have companies in the county that are involved in surveillance and other things. So it's not like these companies are unique. If there's a sentiment to pull it out, we'll pull it out. Somebody asked me if we can do an advisory referendum. I'm going to ask our lawyers if we could do an advisory referendum and ask residents, do you want to put a ban on defense industries in Montgomery County? But, you be careful what you ask for. Lockheed Martin's a major employer in Montgomery County. I'm not sure that people would be very happy if that was something we were expected to do. And I find it very hard to draw a line on where you say not this, but something else. What if a company is selling something that winds up in the hands of the Sudanese or any of the other various monsters that are destroying places around the world? I'm sympathetic to what people are asking for.
Yeah. In this case, I'm not talking about a company. I'm talking about a country that's committing a genocide.
And it's like money's not going to the country, it's going to a company. Yes. Our country supports that country.
My name is Ben Mann. I'm here on behalf of the West Bard Civic Association regarding the permanent closure of the residential block of the old West Bard Avenue. Redevelopment of the West Bard Shopping Center is wonderful, but the residential block of West Bard experiences the heaviest impacts from all the increased density. Right now, there are 33 new townhouses under construction directly on our residential block. As part of the compromise with our neighborhood in the 2016 West Bard Sector Plan, our block of single-family homes was supposed to receive traffic protection in the form of a cul-de-sac, closing off the end of the River Road end to traffic. In February of 2016, as a sitting member of the county council at the time, you yourself voted this language into the West Bard Sector Plan. I have here 131 letters of support from our neighborhood residents, all of which were submitted to the county for a public hearing, calling for you to enact this closure. Letters of support outnumbered letters of opposition by a 5-to-1 margin at our public hearing, with 131 in support and only 28 opposed. Your own MCPD captain, Amy Daum, submitted a letter of support, stating that it would be an unnecessary danger to the public to keep this intersection open. It reads, and I quote, "First, let me state that I support permanent closure of River and West Bard, as do my traffic complaint officers. Visibility in that area of River Road is notoriously poor and speeds notoriously high despite enforcement efforts. We believe reopening puts the community, drivers, and pedestrians at unnecessary risk," end quote. The planning board voted unanimously 5-0 in support of our petition. And finally, in February of this year, you yourself sent a letter to the county council, and here's the important bit. Based on traffic studies conducted concurrent with the processing of this request, West Bard Avenue carries very little traffic currently. Therefore, implementation of the master plan recommendation is viable. MCDOT will, in concert with the West Bard Sector Plan recommendations, pursue and construct redesign of the West Bard Avenue that will feature a cul-de-sac, et cetera, et cetera. There's a bit of budget in here. $140,000 has already been set aside. We celebrated when we read that letter from you. And we believe the county was finally going to honor the commitment it made to our neighborhood in the 2016 Westbard Sector Plan. So why is MCDOT telling us that your staff has put this project on hold? Will you please instruct MCDOT to move forward with the master plan?
I did not tell anybody to put it on hold, so I will talk to them. I've raised the issue about why is it on hold. I'll find out why it's on hold.
Thank you very much.
Hassan Isham. There is a genocide going on in Gaza, and there's a genocide going on in Gaza, and the county is partially complicit because of its funding of the MIDC. Now, about 1 year ago, I came to a budget hearing just like this, and I had asked you, my daughter was 6 months old at the time. I had asked you, when she's old enough to understand what's going on, and she asked me how she should feel about the elected officials that are partially complicit in what's going on. You responded by saying something like a mealy-mouthed answer like you just gave, and you said something about the other council members being much worse on this issue.
There's no support.
She's now 16 months old. Do you have a better answer?
No, there's no support for doing this. If there was support for doing this, it would be gone.
Okay. My name is Dr. Kate Sugarman. I'm a family doctor. I'm Jewish. I live in Potomac. I'm a dual citizen of the United States and Israel. I'm speaking tonight on behalf of the Montgomery County Jewish Collective, a community of Jews in Montgomery County committed to collective liberation as the cornerstone of a vibrant, safe, and supportive Jewish community and a safe and equitable county and state for all. Our coalition, MCJC, has been trying to schedule a meeting with you to discuss our opposition to your decision to include funding for the MIDC in the FY 2026-27 budget. We still have not received a response from your office. The MIDC brings Israeli arms manufacturers and military surveillance companies into our state and county through financial incentives. Some of these companies create products that the IDF has used to carry out its genocide in Gaza. It's outrageous that our county, through our tax dollars, is directly supporting these atrocities. While the dollar amount is at issue here is small, our county's financial needs are significant. We must remember that budgets are moral documents and that what you choose to fund becomes a clear statement of your values. Under these circumstances, continuing to fund the MIDC is both morally bankrupt and fiscally irresponsible. As an organization made up of your Jewish constituents, the Montgomery County Jewish Collective urges you to withhold this funding from the FY 2027 budget. So I'd like to hear your response, please.
I don't know what we're going to do with it this year.
Well,
We've asked our staff to look at it from an economic development perspective. What do we get out of this? Because it hasn't been historically mostly military. It's been mostly non-military companies that have come here.
But the decision is in your hands because you're the one who creates the budget, and then you put the council in a funny position. Well, do we then, antagonize, certain right-wing Jewish constituents? So the budget proposal is in your hands, and that's why
I put the council in a difficult position either way I do it.
But as Jewish residents of the county, we have your back. We will support you. This is what we want. Zoran has Jewish supporters. You have Jewish supporters. And we, as Jewish constituents in the county, we support the ethical option of not funding the MIDC.
I hear you.
Hi, Mark. How are you? Well, thank you for all the work that you have been doing. And my main concern right now is for the mental health of our community, and mainly young people and people that have schizophrenia and depression. And I am very happy that we have in Montgomery County, Cornerstone Montgomery, and we need the support of these nonprofit organizations and also the county health clinics for all the persons that are suffering with this mental illness. And every time that there is this, I hate to say, these mass killings, usually perpetrated by young men, and it really bothers me because most of these young men are mentally ill. And then the media goes all, this is a murder, blah, blah, blah. And the police arrest them, but they are people that are mentally ill. So we need to have more compassion. And I hope that when you will talk about the budget with the county council, that mental health issues and funding are there for this community.
So we continue to put a lot of money into the mental health programs in the county, and we're going to continue to put money in there. And I agree with you. This, the mass murders, anybody who's killing somebody is having a mental problem. Mental health issues are serious, and we need to take them as being serious.
Well, it's just that the sensitivity issue about this in this country has been going for a long time, but it's getting worse. But let's talk about just our county, that maybe that we can show that the people that are having these issues, which is very difficult for families and for everybody else, that we can have more help or have help, continue to help, and also to make it more public.
We're pretty public.
Well, it is, but not, a lot of people don't want to hear it. Sometimes it's hidden. It's more public now.
I mean, we've done campaigns around the phone number that you can call now for mental health. We're trying to, make people more aware that there are places to reach out to. We've tried to make sure there's funding. We've implemented these programs where we have mental health responders responding to police calls where we know there are people who are likely to be at risk because we don't want those calls handled.
I'm aware of those things like the crisis centers, which sometimes I'm not going to talk about the crisis center. But anyway, I thank you very much, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
And Mr. County Executive, the time is now 8:48.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Do you have the time to finish the questions here in line?
About like 9:10.
9:10.
Doesn't mean anybody who's not up doesn't have to get up.
So I want to second the comments before about the Green Bank. I want to point out that it's a social justice issue, since it's people who are poor who are the ones most helped by the Green Bank in order to make the conversion to the heat pumps that you mentioned. On the incinerator issue, one of the major sources of single sources of disposable waste is from the hospitals. Our hospitals are not in the lead in trying to move to reusable equipment as opposed to disposable equipment. There are other hospitals around the country who are in the lead there. It's not the case here. So are you looking at issues of carrots? I don't even know that's an issue, because hospital waste generally does not wind up in our incinerator, winds up going through hospital waste collection. So what they do with it, no one's ever raised this before. Okay, well, you should look at it because it is significant greenhouse gas emissions from hospital waste, and other hospitals that have done it, they actually can save money when they go to a reusable method.
So could you send me, if you know about other hospitals or programs, if you sent me information, I would at least share it with the hospitals and ask them if this is something they're able to do.
Okay, well, other hospitals have done it, so, yeah.
Well, it usually tells us they're able to do it. Then there's willing.
Okay. Can I mention Amelin, a bike bus? People mention bike bus to you, talk about traffic, that other jurisdictions are using a bike bus idea, that people, instead of going onto buses or everybody going into a car to get to school, they form a bike bus together, which I'd be happy to follow up as a member of WABA.
Feel free, but we don't, I hardly see any bicyclists at rush hour on any major road.
That's the idea, is that to elementary schools, junior high schools, you go together in a convoy. All right.
Okay. I know some kids are biking, so okay.
My name is Jovanovic and I live on West Bard Avenue. I would like first to thank you for your excellent presentation, very thorough presentation, touching all the very important issues. And our issue is local, but very important for us. I've been living with my family on West Bard Avenue for 25 years. And our home is close to River Road, so we witnessed a lot of incidents where police was involved, where casualties were involved, and I would urge you to take our plea in consideration, and I fully agree with Mr. Benjamin Mann and his presentation, what he just did.
Okay.
And I'll be there. I would conclude with that. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Philip Alexander Downey, and I am with the Montgomery County Pride Center. County Executive Elrich, thank you so much for your continued support of LGBTQIA+ services in Montgomery County. We are deeply grateful for the county's dedicated funding, especially at a time when we are seeing so many cuts at the state and federal levels for vital life-saving services. Looking ahead, what steps can we take together to ensure that this critical funding is sustained within the county's budget so that we don't have to seek out supplemental funding?
I mean, budgets are annual events. And so I put it in the budget and it goes to the council, but then next year it's still going to be, an executive is going to put it in the budget and go to the council. So there's no permanency to anything unless it's actually part of the county government. Even that, frankly, isn't always permanent. As we've discovered, we've cut things or reduced things when we thought we had to reduce things. But so there's no guarantees that you're not going to have to go through a budget process. But, I'm going to make sure it goes back in the budget this year. And I think, you've had strong support on the council. I don't think there's a council member who's not willing to stand with you in this kind of issue. So I'm pretty sure you could count on continuing support in the budget.
Thank you.
Hi. Mr. County Executive, I understand your frustration with making sure that the commercial sector pays a fair share of tax for instruction. I'm here to help grow and expand the tax-paying business sector. Today, I represent Women Palante, that is a 501c3 nonprofit organization based in DC and Montgomery County. We help Latina women to create business, but also with a holistic approach. We started in 2019, and since our beginning, we have served and support 400 mothers and families across the region. And Mompreneurs program, that is our cornerstone of our work. In Montgomery County, we have graduated 43 participants. We have provided seed funding, and we recently graduated 17 in our last cohort. One of our graduates secured a MOVE grant of $30,000 for her catering business. Another two create a family childcare business. And we also were recognized with the Montgomery County Council with an official proclamation. We're deeply proud of this recognition, but also we are proud to learn that a mother and a woman, Nadia Clut, is leading your business development team. This demonstrates your strong commitment to support a small business, and we're looking forward to working with her and your entire team to ensure that more Latinas are opening business in Montgomery County every day. Looking ahead, we are committed to scaling up our programs and deepening our presence here in Montgomery County. Thank you for your leadership and dedication to empower our diverse community.
Thank you. That will continue.
I'm glad to hear that. My name is Adelaida Lawford, and I'm a proud member of the board of the directors of Women Palante. And it is a privilege to share with why our mission is so important and why it should matter deeply to Montgomery County. Our participants are often mothers, as Jurani just mentioned, who are navigating multiple barriers, limited English, lack of access to affordable childcare, and financial insecurity. And yet, with the support of Women Palante, this nonprofit organization that we're representing today, they discover not only the skills to start a business, but also a community that uplifts them, believes in them, and walks with them as they pursue their dreams. We are very thankful for the support that we're getting from Montgomery County, and but also we recognize that our work is not done yet. The need continues to grow,
And with the county's partnership, we would like to reach even more women, families, and communities. Women Palante is living proof that we can invest in Latina entrepreneurs. We're investing in their families and the future economic and social strength of Montgomery County. On behalf of our board of directors, we want to thank you for believing in this vision and for standing alongside as we continue this journey. Thank you so much.
And I'm glad you're already connected to Nadia.
Yes.
She's very committed.
We're very thankful for that.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good evening, County Executive Etheridge. This is Richard Hoy. I'm retired from the service in the fire department. I live in Bethesda. And I want to announce a few things that have happened this year and that affect the budget in different ways. We have lost unusually high numbers of county workers in the line of duty, actually two, Christopher Higgins, a firefighter, and Reese Bell, a bus driver. Both of these heroes died in the line of duty, and we're saving people's lives. Reese Bell drove the bus with passengers off to the curb and stopped while suffering a heart attack. So I want to say, as a career firefighter, retired, that I'm deeply proud and to be associated with these people. And I believe that their needs in the budget should be held first to make them efficient and safe. I also had the opportunity to call 911 this year, and it turned out that a housemate of mine, I live in Bethesda, and of course, as a retired firefighter, I can't live without housemates and currently a reverse mortgage to pay the property taxes. But one of my housemates suffered a medical condition that was grave, and thanks to the excellent service of the fire and rescue services here, his life was saved. He's back home and back to work. The apparatus of the fire department takes a terrible beating, and particularly transport units, EMS transport units. These units have a short life expectancy because of the great deal of mileage and the types of stress that they go through in their daily runs. So I would prioritize the fire and rescue budget on vehicles and also on personnel. As a firefighter, I knew what overtime did, and it enriched a few people who were lucky to get the overtime, but it ruins unit cohesion and readiness and the training opportunities that the fire and rescue service personnel must have because of the irregularities in the scheduling due to this fact that we don't budget enough to fully fund the seats in the fire department. So I would like to put that at a high record. And I'd like to just end at that. I have lots more requests, but you'll probably see that. Thank you.
But we've tried to keep the fire department's budget fully funded and their recruit classes, and they just had a decent sized recruit class. So we're optimistic they continue to bring people in that need to come in.
Hello, Mark. My name is Patricia Toomey. How are you? I spoke. You're probably very inspired, right? I spoke last year at one of your budget meetings before. I have a career of 20 years with the Internal Revenue Service. I've been homeless now for 1 year and 6 months. And I fell through the cracks because I don't have a mental illness and I do not have an addiction and abusive. And I was there, and as of April 1st, they put out 105 people in Progress Place. My concern is that you took the budget away in 2024 in May, and then you didn't give us funding in 2025. And here we are in 2026 budget, and we still don't have funding for the people. For the people that are single, we have money for families, but not for single people. Why is that?
I didn't know we didn't have money for single people, and we didn't take anything away. So I will have to ask my homeless director, who is pretty
still homeless,
pretty much an advocate. Well, There are people still homeless that we're not able to find.
And there's
housing.
nothing wrong with me. So where do people fall through the cracks? I've paid many taxes for many years.
You know, I don't know how people fall through cracks. Obviously, people like you fall through cracks. So I can ask Christine.
I don't look homeless and I don't smell. So my point is I'm a productive person that wants to work in the community. Okay? So my age is a discretion, I think, because I'm 58 years old. But again, I'm 20 years as an IRS revenue agent. And my point is that I hope in the future for this budget that you just try to consider those single people out there. They're actually informants to the police too. You know that, the homeless people out there.
I will ask Christine about what we're doing.
I spoke to her myself and she
Okay.
told me she put the funding in for the reappropriation 25 year that we put in actually in April. I spoke there myself and we had all 11 votes in council. And where did that money go? 1.463. It's not you that I'm asking. What I'm trying to say is that went to families. We helped less families for that year, that tax year.
If money went through the council, then the money goes into the program. We have 11
Well,
votes for something.
I'm not saying that it didn't go there, but you put it into families. Okay, my point is we have single people out there.
Let me find out what this.
I appreciate that.
On the job front, have you considered,
I'm actually going to go into business myself. I'm probably going to have a lot of people here because I keep getting asked if I'm going into business myself. So that's probably
if you don't get the business stuff, I mean, I would say go talk to, we have WorkSource Montgomery.
That I've been
which
through
does
too.
a fair amount of job training and job connections. So they're worth trying.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hey, Mark.
Hey, how you doing?
So I'm a community builder. Those that don't know about community building, we bridge the gap between residents, organizations, and county. I've worked with Mark Elrich. I've talked with Mark Elrich quite a few times, and we successfully did some things extraordinary. Thank you, Mark Elrich.
Thank you.
I come to you today because I'm a single father. I live in Bethesda, and right now I'm living in the shelter. I lost my job, like a lot of thousands of people have did under this administration. However, I'm standing here because what I'm living through is exactly that many families in this county is going through, like she just said. So let me ask you something. What would you do if you lost your job and had to pack up your whole life in storage, drag 2 kids, your dog, your cat, and had nowhere to go? What would you do if the county told you that you didn't qualify as homeless? And yet, so you and your kids had to sleep in a car during the summer for 2 weeks. And when you finally got into a shelter, what would you do if your so-called shelter was crawling with roaches and rats, filled with crime, drugs, and child predators? What would you do if you had no kitchen, just a microwave and a fridge the size of a storage bin? What would you do if your kids woke up in the middle of the night swatting away gnats coming from the sewage drains? What would you do if, as a single father, you were told that certain county programs didn't apply to you because they were built for mothers, not fathers? What would you do if the unemployment insurance you paid into took a month and a half to reach you when your emergency was right now? So I will ask you one more time, what would you do? I'm here tonight because I am urgently need for deeply affordable housing in Bethesda. I live right down the street. I've canvassed shelters in Rockville, Gaithersburg, Silver Spring, right here in Bethesda. I've seen families pack into rooms that no child should deserve to be in. I've seen parents struggling to keep hope alive while living in conditions that strip away their dignity. We can talk about roads, we can talk about the beautification of projects, pools, but none of that matters if people in Bethesda have no roof over their heads. Deeply affordable housing cannot be treated as an afterthought in a budget. It must be the foundation. Even the President of the United States has called this, quote, one of the defining issues of our time. So tonight, I urge you, shift priorities to the budget towards deeply affordable housing, invest in people, invest in families, and in basic dignity of having a home, because until our work is done, community has a place to live, and our work is not finished.
Can I have a copy of your letter?
Yes.
And I'll try to get. An answer to the question about whether we have shelters that are, or services that are not for men, which would be disturbing if we did that. If you're a parent and you've got the kids, you should be treated as a parent with kids, not discriminated based on whether you're male or female. That shouldn't make any difference. As far as more housing, like I said, we're going to continue to push and try to build more housing. I will say that I asked Christine, because I heard what the president said too. And I said, fine, so write a request. So we've written a request to the federal government, actually laying out how much money we need to build out all the shelters and the support staff in order to staff them. And we're going to ask Mr. Trump, since he believes that people should be able to get shelter and get services, we're going to ask him to give the county enough money to actually do this. And we'll see what kind of answer we get. But at least I felt like if he was going to say it publicly, the least I could do is give him the opportunity to actually do something constructive.
So hey, Mark, how are you?
Still standing.
So thank you. I just want to say thank you for coming to support like people with disabilities. Like, I came from Sikh, and so I just want to ask you about some like a budget that we were trying to think about. Is that as of right now, like a lot of people with disabilities, like they're experiencing issues like the Medicaid cut, which is, sadly passed by Republican and President Trump. And especially back earlier in February, it's like when Maryland is facing the budget deficit, which means that there's a budget cut to the DDA, which is just a big concern, is because this is the service that everybody relies on for like a housing support, employment services, and community engagements, because we see a lot of people with disabilities that were all across Montgomery County. Is because this is what many services that many of the agencies, including state of Maryland, Montgomery County, has been provided. So I just want to ask you about the budget support for the DD supplement for like wherever the county continues to fund for all like developmental disabilities, including all adult services agencies.
So I put the supplement in. I will put the supplement again in this year because I believe, this for the rest of you don't know, the supplement adjusts what the state pays or what our providers are able to pay to what it costs to actually live in Montgomery County. So, and the county adds to that so that people are getting better than minimum wage so that they can actually work there, because it's tough doing this work for the same pay you can work in McDonald's or Target. So we'll put the supplement in. That's important to us. And we're doing an assessment. We don't know yet what the federal cuts are going to mean, and we don't know yet what all the state cuts, what may trickle down from the state. So our approach is going to be to do an assessment and then figure out what are the holes we have to fill in. And hopefully we've got enough money put away that we can at least backfill some of the holes that are going to be created. But I don't have answers to that, but we're aware of the problem.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Thank you.
Mr. County Executive, that is the last question.
I bet it's later than 9:10. Okay. Okay, you guys did a miraculous job of ending what I said. Thank you very much.